She sparkled louder than the chandelier hanging above us. Every move she made, from the way she held her wine glass to how she threw her head back when laughing, screamed, "Look at me!" And they did. All of them. I hadn't seen Olivia in 5 years, but some things don't change, especially her need to humiliate. Mom begged me to come. "It's just dinner," she said, but it never is. Not with Olivia. I sat where I belonged, at the far end of the table next to the kitchen doors. Not part of the show, just part of the background. The clinking of forks and shallow compliments buzzed around like a swarm of flies. Olivia led, the conversation like a conductor. Every story ended with her saving the day or winning the prize. Then her eyes found mine. Sharp, familiar. She tilted her head and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You know what's funny?" I didn't answer. I never do. She kept going. "It's kind of poetic how someone like him shows up thinking he belongs at this table." A few people gave those awkward little laughs, the ones people use when they're not sure if it's a joke or just cruelty dressed up with lipstick. Then she said it, the line she's probably been saving since the invitations went out. "You've always been a nobody, and you always will be." I looked down at my napkin and waited for the pain, but it didn't come. I didn't flinch. I didn't snap back, because I'd already bled out from that wound years ago. That's when he spoke. Michael, her fiancé. Polished, pleasant, naive. He leaned toward me, smiling like he was making small talk in a cafe. "I'm sorry, I just realized who you are," he said. "You're Judge Hayes, aren't you?" Silence. The kind of silence that makes the air feel heavier. Michael kept going, still smiling. "I read your ruling on that corporate ethics case last fall. Brilliant stuff. You absolutely dismantled that defense line by line. It was like watching a chess master at work." Olivia's wine glass stopped mid-air. Mom's fork didn't make it to her mouth. I looked up slowly and met his eyes. "I've handled a few tough cases," I said, calm, deliberate. "That one just happened to get noticed," he chuckled. "Noticed? It was quoted in law journals across the country." I gave a small nod, then went back to my napkin. Olivia didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her silence screamed louder than any insult ever could. It wasn't about proving her wrong. Not yet. It was about letting the truth sit. I'd spent most of my life wearing her words, like chains, until I learned to forge silence into armor, and in that moment, at that table, she realized something I already knew. Nothing, truly nothing, is more powerful than the silence of a man who was underestimated. And I had been underestimated. For the very last time. Some wounds don't bleed on the outside. They just stay quiet. For years. Until someone says your name out loud. The real name. And suddenly, the pain has a voice. I wasn't born Judge Hayes. That name was earned, not inherited. I grew up in a house where silence wasn't golden. It was ignored. Our father died when I was 9. A car crash. Instant. After that, it was just the 3 of us. But really, it was just 2. My mother and Olivia. They were the sun and the moon, bright, polished, always in orbit. And me, I was the shadow, under the stairs. Olivia, she knew how to charm anyone. But behind the smile, even as a kid, she was sharp. She had this way of turning the truth inside out and handing it back to you like a gift. Once when I was 12, she accidentally slipped into my school's office and told the counselor I'd been stealing test papers. It was a lie, but it stuck. That same week I was suspended. She called it a joke. Mom called it a misunderstanding. I called it the beginning. No matter what she did, Mom defended her. "She's just trying to protect you," she'd say. As if betrayal could be a form of love, I stopped speaking much after that, stopped asking for help, and by 17, I stopped coming home. I left with a duffel bag, a half-dead phone, and $23 in my pocket. Nobody ran after me. Nobody even called. I slept in my car some nights, cleaned dishes in a back alley diner where the owner didn't care if you had a past, only if you showed up on time. That's where I met him, Samuel Hayes. He sat at the back corner booth every Friday, wore the same navy coat, ordered the same black coffee, and tipped more than the bill. One night he asked me what I was reading. It was a tattered book on criminal justice I'd pulled out of the dumpster behind the community college. I told him I liked how law made sense, that rules were clean, unlike people. He smirked and said, "Good, because life won't hand you justice. You'll have to build it, brick by quiet brick." He was a retired judge, gruff, stern, but his eyes, they held something my own mother never gave me. Belief. He became my mentor, my foundation, my family. He taught me how to listen more, then speak, how to write with precision, and how silence, when used right, can shake the room harder than shouting ever will. I changed my name legally the year I passed the bar. Hayes. Because the man who gave me a second chance deserved to live on, even if no one else would remember him. During law school, I met Nina. Sharp as broken glass, and just as useful when you needed to cut through lies. She saw me, not just my ambition, but the cracks behind it. The nights I'd stay up tracing courtroom transcripts like scripture. The way I never looked in a mirror for too long. She said once, "You carry your past like it's chained to your ribs. Let it drag behind you, not across your chest." Terry came later. Roommate turned ghostwriter. He was a tech wizard, the kind who could erase footprints and draw new ones. He helped scrub my history, bury the family name, and shape my new identity. He joked, "If your sister ever Googles you, she'll think you died at 17. That was the point. I built a life they couldn't touch, a name they couldn't recognize, a silence they couldn't hear, until it echoed back. But fate, it doesn't like loose ends. And when I walked into that dinner party, sat at that long, polished table, I wasn't there to prove anything. I just wanted to see how it would feel, to sit across from a past that thought it buried me, and not flinch. That night, when Michael called me Judge Hayes, something shifted, not in me. I'd already made peace with the ashes, but in her. Olivia's face said it all. She didn't just recognize the name, she recognized the silence that followed it, because for the first time in her life, I wasn't beneath her. I was beyond her, and she had no idea how far I'd come. Some truths don't stab. They whisper, slowly, cruelly, like water finding the cracks, and then they pour through you until nothing feels solid anymore. The dinner ended hours ago, but I couldn't sleep. I sat in my hotel room, still wearing the same suit, untouched drink in one hand, her laughter still echoing in the back of my skull. Then came the knock. Soft, careful, the kind you make when you're about to say something you can't take back. I opened the door, and there he was. Michael. No suit now, just a t-shirt and jeans. But the look in his eyes? Different. He wasn't the easygoing fiancé from dinner anymore. He asked if we could talk, privately. We sat down across from each other. Two men with nothing in common, except the same ghost between us. He started slowly, almost apologetically. "I need to be honest with you," he said. "I knew who you were before tonight. I didn't react, not yet. I just waited," he went on. "When Olivia told me she didn't have any siblings, I got curious. I've worked in finance long enough to know, when people hide something, it usually means more than they admit." He paused, looked down at the floor like it might give him better words. So I did a background check, a soft one at first, then, I found your name, not the name she gave me. The real one. Your rulings, your credentials, your speeches. You weren't just some estranged relative. You're a force. My throat tightened, not from pride, but something colder. Then he dropped the bomb. She told me her brother died years ago. Drug overdose. He looked at me, and his voice softened. She said she found you in a bathroom with a needle in your arm. Silence. Heavy, cruel, and yet familiar. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I remembered. That lie wasn't new. I'd heard whispers of it before, from distant cousins, people who looked at me like I was something they'd been warned about, and I'd let it slide, let it rot in the dark where it was born. But hearing it from him, now, after everything, that was different. That's when the memories hit me. I remembered the time she spilled soda all over my college application, then told our mom I hadn't even finished it, or the night I overheard her at a holiday party saying, "He's just a shadow, he'll never matter, he was born invisible." She said it with a smile, like it was a joke, but no one laughed, not even me. Michael reached into his pocket and slid a folder onto the table. "I hired someone," he said. "A PI, her name's Lena." I opened it and saw everything. Bank statements, emails, even donation records with my forged signature. She'd been using my title, Judge Hayes, to funnel donations from one of my public campaigns into a fake nonprofit. "She used you," Michael said, quietly. "She's been laundering money under your name. I'm mocking the people who gave. I found this message she sent to the charity board." I read it. 4 words, typed with my name under it. "Stupid donors. Easy money." My hands trembled. Not from anger, from recognition. This was Olivia. The Olivia no one else ever saw. The one I grew up with. The one who smiled in public and set fires in private. I closed the folder and sat back. No words for a moment. Then I looked at him. "She's going to destroy you," I said. "If you stay." He nodded, but he didn't leave. That told me everything. Later that week I called Rachel, a court clerk who owed me a favor. Sharp, unflinching, loyal. She confirmed everything. Olivia had created a paper trail, just enough to implicate me, but not enough to get caught herself, unless someone was looking. And now, I was. Then came Aunt Carol. Out of the blue. She hadn't spoken to me in years, but somehow she knew. She said, "Your sister always feared you'd come back. Even as a kid, you were the one person who didn't need her approval." That scared her. It made sense. The lies, the rumors, the false overdose. They weren't just cruelty. They were control. She couldn't stand the thought of me succeeding. Not because she wanted to shine, but because she needed to be the only one who did. That same night, I sat down with Dr. Emerson, my therapist. I'd been seeing him for years. He listened to everything, carefully, without judgment. Then he said something that stuck. "You don't want revenge. You want clarity. But sometimes, and the only path to clarity is through fire." I asked him, "So you're saying burn her down?" He smiled gently. "No, I'm saying, let the truth do what fire does, reveal what's real and reduce the rest to ash." And then it happened. I got an alert, an email, from the same charity she'd mocked. Apparently someone had flagged a discrepancy, a donation that never reached them, but was signed by me. It had begun, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger or fear. I felt ready, because now it wasn't just about what she said at that dinner table or what she told the world about me. It was about what she did with my name. Some wars don't start with explosions. They begin with a smile, with a nod, with a quiet, Of course I understand. I didn't want to destroy her, but I knew I couldn't let her keep building her empire with my name written in ash beneath it. So I started where I always do, in silence. The night after Michael showed me the file, I called him. I said, "Do you still want to marry her?" There was a pause, then a tired sigh. "I want to know who I'm really marrying." That was enough. We agreed to keep our conversations off record. Private number, encrypted calls. He gave me one thing I never thought I'd get from Olivia's world: access. "Tell her I stormed off," I told him. "Say I overreacted. Say I left town." He hesitated, but nodded. "You sure you want her thinking you're still a nobody?" I said, "That's exactly what I want." I gave Olivia space, on purpose. She took the bait, of course. Sent one smug text to Michael 2 days later. "Told you he's unstable. He always folds." Meanwhile, I was folding nothing. I called Lena, the private investigator, told her to dig deeper into Olivia's philanthropic work. 2 days later, she sent me a folder of shell companies, forged board minutes, and a non-profit that didn't even have an address. "She's bold," Lena said. "This isn't hiding, it's a parade." While Lena traced paper trails, I turned to Caleb, a cybersecurity specialist I'd helped out years ago during a digital rights case. I said, "I need to know how deep the rabbit hole goes." He didn't ask questions, just said, "Give me 72 hours and a strong cup of coffee." Caleb pulled her email logs. Thousands. One stood out. An alias account. LilyGoldChairConsultLive.com. She used it to send fake tax reports, to forge donor receipts, to shift funds. Every crime she committed, she hid in plain sight, because she thought no one would look. That's the problem with being called a nobody for so long. People stop checking if you're still watching. I brought in Priya next. Financial forensic analyst. Sharp. No nonsense. The kind who reads invoices like murder weapons. She looked over the documents and said, "There are inconsistencies in every quarter. Phantom vendors. Recycled tax IDs. She's smart, but not careful." Meanwhile, I quietly filed an injunction against a property deal Olivia was about to close. A luxury retreat center she'd been bragging about for months. Filed it under a conflict of interest clause. Didn't sign my name, just used my judicial seal, anonymously. Her lawyer called her in a panic the next day. She posted some vague rant about jealous losers trying to slow her down. Michael forwarded it to me with a comment. "She's spiraling. She thinks it's her ex-business partner." Perfect. I called Harold next. Old friend from my undergrad days. Now editor at a mid-sized business paper. He said, "You want a front-page expose on a local sweetheart?" I replied, "I want the truth published. When I say it's time." He agreed. Under one condition. "Give me the receipts. All of them." I did. One piece was missing. A public investor. Someone who'd feel the sting of betrayal. Publicly. That's where David came in. Major contributor to Olivia's nonprofit. He thought she was changing lives. I called him from a blocked number. Told him to check the last 3 transactions, tied to his wire transfer. There was silence. Then a quiet, "My God," he said. "If this gets out, I want my name on the right side of it." We had all the pieces. But I wasn't done yet. There was one person I needed to see. One person who'd taught me how to win with silence, not noise. Judge Samuel Hayes, my mentor, my compass. He was in hospice care, lung cancer, stage 4. When I walked into his room, he was staring at the ceiling like he was arguing with God. He looked at me, smiled weakly, and said, "You came." I pulled up a chair, held his hand, told him everything. The plan, the lies, the stolen identity, the fraud. When I finished, he took a breath, then whispered, "You don't need to destroy her. Just let the truth walk through the front door." That line stayed with me, and so I waited. I waited until her gala, a pre-wedding fundraiser, grand, obnoxious, televised, champagne fountains, celebrity donors, flashbulbs, and silk. I showed up at the edge of the room, not as a guest, not as family, but as a shadow with teeth. She saw me. Her eyes narrowed. She walked over slowly and hissed, "What the hell are you doing here?" I looked at her calmly and said, "Just watching." She tried to laugh. "Still stalking my success?" I didn't answer, didn't need to, because while she was toasting the crowd, 3 things were happening behind the scenes. First, her nonprofit's license was being revoked. Second, IRS agents had flagged and frozen all linked accounts. And third, Herald hit publish. The exposé went live at 7:48 p.m. Headline: The Golden Lie, How Olivia Winters Defrauded Thousands Using a Stolen Identity. Her phone lit up. So did her face. Panic, confusion, then rage. She turned back to me and spat, "You did this." I just shrugged. "No, you did." That night I didn't stay for the fallout. Didn't need to. I drove back to the edge of town, parked outside the house I grew up in. It was abandoned now, peeling paint, shattered window. I walked around the back, found the old storage bin buried under years of dirt. Inside, a sketchbook, my name scribbled in shaky lines, and on the last page in tiny, hopeful handwriting, "I want to be important someday." I sat there for a while, sun slipping behind the trees, didn't cry, didn't smile, just closed the book and called the press. Some endings aren't loud. They don't come with screaming or fists on the table. They arrive like a quiet tide, slow, deliberate, undeniable. The rehearsal dinner was being held at some overpriced vineyard just outside the city. Olivia had spared no expense. Champagne fountains, string quartet, candlelit floral centerpieces tall enough to block anyone else's view of the truth. She was glowing. Not from love, from control. Every step she took was a victory lap, until the phone started buzzing. First one guest, then another, a ripple of screens lighting up, eyes widening, lips whispering behind napkins. The exposé had dropped. Herald's headline was brutal and honest. The Golden Lie. How Olivia Winters Built an Empire on Fraud and a Dead Brother's Name. Michael stood quietly beside her as guests began to whisper, not to her, but about her. Then the door opened, and I walked in, no tux, no smile. Just a dark blazer, clean documents tucked under my arm, and my badge. Not pinned, but known. She froze. Her hand hovered over a wine glass she didn't dare lift. I stopped a few feet from her. No rush, no fury, just purpose. Her voice cracked. "First, you're not supposed to be here." I met her eyes. Calm, measured. I wasn't supposed to exist, remember? She tried to laugh, tried to regain footing. "This is pathetic," she said, louder now. "You're just bitter I made something of myself." Michael didn't look at her. He just turned to me and asked, "Do you have it?" I nodded, placed the envelope on the table in front of her. Inside were the court orders, freezing her accounts, halting her charity, voiding her property contracts. She reached for it, but her hand shook. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk, just stood there. Then Michael finally spoke. His voice was soft, but cut deeper than anything I could have said. "You lied about your own brother. What else have you lied about?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Aunt Carol had already released her statement, backed every word in the exposé, said the truth had been buried long enough. Caleb's digital records, Priya's financial breakdowns, all of it had been submitted to the authorities, and I never raised my voice because when the truth is that loud, you don't need to. She slumped into a chair. All the air, gone. People began walking out, one by one, quietly, like the party had ended hours ago and no one told her. I turned to leave, but paused at the door. She looked up at me, not with hate but confusion, like she was seeing me for the first time, and maybe she was, because the boy she once laughed at, the shadow she once stepped over, he was never really gone. He just became someone she couldn't reach. Some endings don't echo. They settle, like dust after the storm. Quiet, weightless, final till Livia's world unraveled faster than anyone expected. Sponsors vanished. The charity board resigned. Michael called off the wedding the next morning. Didn't say much, just that he was done living in a house built on lies. Reporters tried to reach me, emails, calls, even someone knocking at my door. But I never answered, never gave a quote. The truth had already spoken. I left the city not long after, found a small coastal town where no one recognized me, and started something new. A modest legal clinic for kids who felt invisible, like I once did. Runaways, dropouts, dreamers. Above the door, a wooden sign reads, "Justice with Dignity, Judge Hayes." One afternoon, a boy asked me, "Did you ever get revenge?" I smiled, shook my head. No. I just let the truth catch up. Because revenge doesn't need to scream. Sometimes, it just needs to arrive dressed in truth.